Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in to our Fall 2021 Distinguished Lecture Series. I'm Jay Whitaker. I'm the director of the Wilton E. Scott Institute for Energy Innovation here at Carnegie Mellon University. And we're very excited today to have Richard Voorberg here to give us an overview of Siemens Energy. Before I jump into that, though, I want to give a quick overview of a couple of things. First of all, feel free to connect with us anytime. If this is new to you, or if you're first time tuning in, please go to the website and check out what's going on here at the Scott Institute. We have many other things happening. And really quickly, what we do here is we're trying to create a community of energy researchers through research, partnerships, outreach, entrepreneurship, and education. You can read the rest of our mission statement and impact statement here. But needless to say, as director, it's always a privilege to work with some of the finest energy researchers in the country and the world, and to have fantastic people come in and give us all lectures, interact with us. So this is just one example of the many things that we have going on here at the Scott Institute. I encourage you guys to look and see what else is happening in November and December this year. We've got a couple more distinguished lectures and a couple other webinars. All the information about this and how to sign up is available on the website. Thank you. So without further ado, I'd like to quickly introduce our guest, Rich Voorberg. Rich is president of North American Hub of Siemens Energy, based in Orlando. He has a regional responsibility for the energy business in the Americas, which includes the company's generation, industrial applications, and transmission divisions. Most recently, Richard served as the head of service in North America, where he was responsible for managing all aspects of large power service, including gas turbines, steam turbines, generators, and nuclear. Additionally, he is chairman of the board for Advanced Airfoil Components. Richard has almost 30 years of experience with Siemens, including extensive involvement in the manufacturing, commissioning, and management, project management, and marketing aspects of the power generation business. Richard was responsible for the design, project management, and building of brand new factory in Charlotte, North Carolina for gas turbine manufacturing. He holds a bachelor's degree in applied science in mechanical engineering from the University of Waterloo, and his MBA in ESMT in Berlin, Germany. One other thing I'm going to point out, you might notice behind me is a class. That's because this is my class. I teach this semester a class that's entitled Emerging Topics in Energy Policy. I can think of nothing better to talk about today and have a guest lecture for my class than Rich. And it turns out that the time slot for this featured distinguished lecture exactly overlaps my class. So behind me are my students, and they will hopefully have some questions at the end for Rich, along with others in the audience. So without further ado, I will turn the screen control over to Rich, and he will take over. Sound good?
Sounds great to me. Thank you very much. Let me bring up my slides here. Share. So hopefully you can see my screen here, Jay.
Yes, it looks great here. Jenny, can you see it too? I presume that's a yes. You should go for it.
There we go. Otherwise, you can yell at me here in a minute if you're not seeing anything. But so thanks, Jay. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your class as well as to all those online. You know, and I wish I could be there in person. You know, it's like I always get more out of doing things in person, but I know with the way that we are right now on the COVID side that this just works better. So hopefully sometime soon I'll be coming over to Carnegie Mellon to see you guys, see your labs, and also figure out how to work closer between Siemens Energy and Carnegie Mellon as well, because that's really what we as Siemens are about, is partnerships. And you'll see that as part of my presentation here. I'm going to talk to you for probably about 20-25 minutes here, and just sort of walk through a little bit of what we're seeing in the what I've titled here, the evolution of energy. Excuse me. So what I mean by that is we're transitioning. Our energy landscape globally is transitioning, and it's been quite a journey, and it's really not a you know, I think we've kind of realized that we really are on a transition over the last couple of years, but in real life, we've been on one for multiple number of years. And I'll try to give you a little perspective from the Siemens Energy side to where we see ourselves going and what we're trying to do to advance this evolution and try to make it a green evolution as well. Because, you know, as COP's going on right now in Scotland, that's really part of our mantra as well, is we've got to transform the energy market. And we feel nobody better than us as a fully integrated energy company. I'll explain what that means. That nobody better than us, because we are fully integrated energy, and we can drive this market into a green manner. So I won't reintroduce myself. Jay, I think, did a good job of that. But what I did bring is a gentleman named Jerry Feller, who's on the line here as well. And Jerry, I always bring along. He's my muscle, so he's the smart guy in the room. And especially when I'm talking to universities, they start getting into stuff that is well beyond me. Jerry's a PhD in nuclear physics, or at least on nuclear energy, I believe. And so Jerry can answer any of those questions. Let me just give you a quick second to say hi, Jerry.
Hello all, thanks, and Rich is right. I'm a principal key expert here at Siemens Energy, and I am a PhD in nuclear engineering from the University of Florida. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jerry. So as I get difficult questions, so there's your answer to all the difficult questions, because all I am is an engineer out of Canada, out of University of Waterloo. So I don't bring a lot of that high-end knowledge, but I do bring a good sense of business. And what I'm going to try to be careful to do is not turn this into a sales pitch. That's not what our intention here. It's really to show what the capabilities of Siemens are. But so I think I've got to introduce some of that, but then take it to that next level as where we see the market going. So with that quick introduction, let me jump right into it. So when you look at the word charts that you see up here, the climate change is the front and center. This is what I'm hearing from a lot of our customers is, what are we doing about climate change? And these are most of my customers that you're seeing, that I'm seeing, are a lot of big utilities, and they're figuring out what decarbonization means. And and we're utilizing through the digitalization, through the changing, and we as big companies need to drive this, and we need to get that to the next level. So Jay had mentioned I took over my last role as head of service in North America in 2018, and my counterparts in Europe kept saying, "Hey, Rich, your customers want to know about hydrogen. They want to know about decarbonization." And I had to, that first year I was in that role, I kept pushing back saying, my customers aren't interested in it. It's not making money. And then suddenly in early 2020, everybody started coming out of the woodwork. And suddenly I started seeing all of my customers saying, we need decarbonization roadmaps. Can you help us? And suddenly I realized that they had all signed up for the UN climate action in 2019. And their CEOs signed up, said by 2050, we're all going to be, or earlier, we're all going to be net zero. And, and then they called us up and they said, hey, Siemens Energy, how do we do this? And to be honest, we kind of went, we don't know either. But what we said is, let's work on this together. And it can't be just us as Siemens trying to solve the world's problem, and it can't be the customers just solving the world's problems, but it's got to be everybody. It's got to be, academia's got to be in the middle of this, different trade groups, customers, startup companies. We all got to work there in partnership. And you'll hear me use this word partnership an awful lot in this discussion, because I truly believe it is a partnership. If we want to solve the world's problems, we need to do this together, because it's too big of a problem and no one person can do this. So as we look at what the future is, we expect globally 50% increase in the electricity generated by 2040. That's a huge increase. We're seeing a lot of the world starting to become decarbonized, or sorry, electrified. So, things that used to be done through different mechanical means, whether it be cars, those are the obvious ones, but various industrial processes, a lot of that is moving towards utilizing electricity. So we've got that, the electrification of our world on the industry side, but we also still have, depending on how you count it, but I've heard the number as low as 600 million or as high as 1 billion people without real sustainable electricity. And that's our obligation as energy capable companies, is how to generate or how to get electricity for those people. Now imagine if you're somebody that's never had electricity and suddenly you get the opportunity, and then the world goes, yeah, but we'll get you electricity, but you can't pollute. And it's like, wait a sec. You in the first world have been having electricity for over 100 years, and you've been polluting all this time. It's just not a fair position that you say, I can't pollute to create electricity, which should be a natural thing that we should have. So that's where we see it as our obligation and our requirement, that what we want to do is electrify the world, but do it in a green manner as well. And I think there's a lot of benefits to that. And if I quote John Curtis, who's a congressman out of Utah, a Republican congressman actually, that runs the clean, I think it calls it the Clean Energy Climate or Clean Climate or something like that. But he's gone around and started collecting signatures of different Republican congressmen and senators to acknowledge that climate change is real. And the reason he's doing that is because he said we go in as Republicans into a room and say, climate change isn't real. And he said everybody turns us off at that point. And he said he's getting everybody to sign up, all his colleagues to sign up, because what he wants to do is start the conversation, from the right side, to say there is climate change in the world, and we've got to fix it. Because if you can imagine it, his comment is, imagine a room that half of it is a smoking section and half of it isn't a smoking section. Well, guess what? That whole room is a smoking section, and that's our world. So as we sit here and we're starting to bring down our carbon footprint, if the rest of the world is raising that carbon footprint, we're at a net zero effect, and we got to start coming to a net negative effect when we come to carbon. And that's where it comes to us in the first world to start developing a lot of this technology, develop it sustainably, develop it reliably and cheaply as well, and export that to some of these countries that do not have power today. And that's really where a lot of our thought process comes, as well as Siemens. And that's what we want to try to drive in the market, is trying to electrify the world, hit that demand growth in the electricity that we see, and start doing it sustainably and green. So as we look at the US market right now, you see some of the bottom right corner. If we sort of focus on that, where are we going in when it comes to generation in the US? So today we sit in here, if you look at that purple bar, you see we sit about 39% running our generation utilizing natural gas. 10 years from now, we're still probably pretty much about the same number. But 10 years after that, we're starting to see that number in natural gas still going down. But still, a quarter of the power in the world is, in the US, is still utilizing natural gas. So natural gas is not going away in a fast manner. It is declining. You see the chart below that, the color, that's the coal. You can clearly see coal going from 21% today to 7% in 10 years to virtually 0. So coal is really making a quick exit. But you see the renewables, the wind and the solar, really starting to ramp up as well, with some nuclear that sits in there between the 20 and the 15%. And then you see a few other things like hydro and batteries all playing in there as well. So the message is out of this slide is we're in a transformation, but that transformation isn't an overnight affair. It's a roadmap to go from where we are today out to 2050. So it's a long journey. And the one box there talking about PJM. So that's sort of a Pittsburgh area, but PJM is an ISO region within the United States. And what you'll see is that in PJM region, the gas generation remains the market leader for the foreseeable future. So we track permits and people that want to put in large power plants in the US. And we see PJM having a huge backlog for gas turbine power plants. So we can see that by looking at that, we see gas turbines are here for the future. And we're a manufacturer of large gas turbines. And we like that not only because today it burns natural gas, but in the future it's going to burn hydrogen. And we'll talk a little bit about how we make that a reality here over the next few slides. So how the question is how can the world meet this growing demand for electricity while still protecting our climate? And the clear answer is we do this together. It's the partnership. It's about us working together, us driving for a solution together. And again, it's us as original equipment manufacturers. It's us as customers, whether you be an independent power producer, a big utility, private equity funds, all that together. It's got to be academia, the different universities all coming together. It's got to be government. The government's got to help stimulate, not only through some R&D grants, but also through some production tax credits. They've already done some of that through wind and solar. We believe under the next bill that we see coming out on the infrastructure bill coming up soon, we believe we'll see some coming into the hydrogen side of it as well to fund some of that. And then on top of that is utilizing startup companies. So there's a lot of great startup companies out there. And again, they can't solve this on their own. They're really good at creating a great idea. And we as Siemens are looking through some partnerships to figure out how to help some of those companies scale and matching them up with ultimate customers as well to make this a viable product. So who are we as Siemens Energy? So you probably recognize the name Siemens, or hopefully you do. That's our parent company. That was the company that has been around for 150 plus years, and it does and did everything from healthcare to power to lighting, you name it. If I were to compare it, it's a German-based company. If I were to compare it to a company in the US, it would be GE, doing a little bit of everything, including appliances. So Siemens Energy over the last number of years is a big conglomerate, and the market really doesn't like big conglomerates. So slowly they've been parceling out each of the companies. And a year ago, we as Siemens Energy were split off. So Siemens still owns somewhere between 35 and 40% of our company, and the rest sits out on the stock exchange in Frankfurt. So we're a good sized company, and we're still 90,000 employees, but the benefit that we have is, and I used this word earlier, an integrated energy company. So we're uniquely positioned that we sit, if you look down on the bottom on our industrial applications, We also call that sort of that oil and gas. So we deal out to the wellhead, whether it be offshore or onshore. We deal with the pipelines that come in. We deal with the gas generation, so running the turbines to produce power. That generation also includes nuclear. We've got a nuclear arm for us as well. We additionally, and I'll jump back over here, you'll see renewables. So we own 2/3 of a company named Siemens Gamesa, one of the big three wind turbine producers in the world, the number one on the offshore wind. So we've got renewable portfolio. You see in the back corner there, transmission, and that's the lines, the transformers, the lines, the control of the grid. That's where we sit as well. And then you see over here, we call this our new energy business. So that's kind of where we house our hydrogen side. And I've touched those words a few times, but let me walk you through a little bit of the cycle, what we do. So if you've got a power plant over here on the left, and what it can do is it can produce electricity. That electricity can find its way over to what we call an electrolyzer. And I'll show a little bit, whoops, I'll show a little bit more, just clearing a few things off my screen here. And we'll talk about electrolyzer in a few minutes, but imagine a big box that power goes in and water, or power and water go in, and out comes hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen then could be utilized for things like running trucks, buses, trains, you name it, sort of that mobility. Could be part of an industrial process, making clean steel, making clean ammonia, different things along those lines. And then what you could also do is take that hydrogen, circle that back, and run that back through. And instead of burning natural gas, we burn hydrogen. So this is where we like our turbines. We see a lot of turbines still going in the ground, and the reason being is because it's going to be generational. It's going to be able to burn natural gas today and hydrogen producing zero emissions in the future. So that's kind of what we call our integrated energy company here. So we're 1 year old right now. And we've had some great successes. We've been working with the DOE on a number of projects. We also just signed up about a week and a half ago with Breakthrough Energy. And Breakthrough Energy is a Bill Gates company. And he's funding, he and a number of his other philanthropy friends are funding these startup companies. And what they're doing is they're taking these startup companies and giving them their ideas. They want to create green companies and focus on areas like power generation, agriculture, cement, those type of areas. And they've asked us to come alongside with them and help those companies that are starting up and help scale them and mentor them. So I'll be a mentor for some of these startup companies. And a number of our employees will be, Jerry will be as well. And we'll help them with their technology, but also help them with the business side as we take the startup great idea. We can help them scale that. We can introduce them to customers as well, and figure out how to make this a real viable business for them. So a lot of exciting opportunities that we have here as Siemens Energy going forward. So apologies if I've been a little too commercial, too much focused on ourselves. Let me one more slide, and then I'm going to stretch it some of the things that we're doing here in the market. So innovation is what we're all about. We have over 24,000 patents and utility models out there. We've got 5,000 people that sit in the R&D side, and we are committed. We've spent over the last number of years over €1 billion in R&D spend every year, And we're going to continue down that road. That's our commitment, is to continue to grow our company. It's extremely important that we're continuing to invest in innovation. That's the company we are, and that's the company that we want to remain. And if we really want to create this energy transition, this is a side of the business that we need to keep viable. So what are we doing? We got some pretty cool stuff out there, and let me walk through the wind to hydrogen solution. So I said earlier, Siemens Gamesa is #1 on the offshore. So the problem is you end up with power sitting offshore, and how do you get it onshore? You can take that DC power and then run it a number of miles into on land and convert it to AC. We've got a solution for that. We call that high voltage DC. But what we're actually working on now is putting an electrolyzer out on the platform. So we take the power, create hydrogen, and then we can transport the hydrogen. And you can transport that either through a pipeline, through a ship, various other ways. So basically, you got these massive 15 plus megawatt wind turbines sitting out there. You've got an electrolyzer underneath producing hydrogen. That's really in the prototype stage, and we're working to develop that. And I mentioned earlier the electrolyzer, as you see in the middle there. So this is one of the world's largest electrolyzer. Takes in about 17 megawatts of power to produce the hydrogen. So the challenge on that is trying to make this economic. So that's where the technology needs to go. Is we've got an electrolyzer that produces hydrogen for somewhere, probably, depending on how you want to look at, between the $5 to $8 a kilo of hydrogen. I was on as a panelist just recently on the hydrogen shot with John Kerry opened it, Bill Gates was there, and the Secretary Grantham, just to throw a few names at you to impress you. But they challenged us, and we've accepted that challenge to get it down to $1 for each kilo and of hydrogen, and we need to do that within this year, or within this decade. So that's the challenge: $1 for 1 kilo within the decade. And that's reminiscent of Kennedy's moonshot, where he said we'd get a man on the moon by the end of the decade. This is a hydrogen shot to get the cost of hydrogen down to $1 a kilo within the decade. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that through some additive manufacturing technologies. We've got a lot of technology on that. We've been utilizing the additive manufacturing. You see one of our compressor wheels there. We're working on repair mechanisms. We've got that through nozzles that are running in blades and vanes. A lot of technology to develop this. Really high metals as well. You know, the different nickel-based materials. That's where the challenge is, because within the turbines they get pretty hot, and we've got to make sure that they're able to withstand the heat, but also with being able to withstand the centrifugal forces. So a lot of opportunities that we see there as well. When you look at the eco-friendly side, so zero greenhouse gases. So you look is the target. You look at a lot of the transmission stuff. It's got a lot of the F gases that are there, and we've actually developed and shipped our first product now out to Pacific Gas and Electric that has no SF6 gases in it, or F gases at all. So that's a new technology that we're trying to drive within the market. Some of the opportunities we see, so every turbine we sell today, large or small, the challenge is nobody's going to get one permitted unless they're talking about hydrogen capability. Our large gas turbines, our largest gas turbine, which is a little over 400 megawatts, we can already burn 50% hydrogen in that. Some of our smaller ones were already up to 100%. But by the end of 2030, all our gas turbines will be able to burn hydrogen. The challenge is not burning hydrogen in a turbine. The challenge is trying to make that hydrogen cheap enough to make it economic to burn. So a lot of partnerships that you see there between Ohio State, Clemson. I don't see anything on Carnegie Mellon, but we're going to have to change that soon. But you also see NCPA, Northern California Power Authority. They could be one of the first ones that are running on hydrogen here in the U.S. Again, I talked about partnerships. You need the utilities. You need so PG&E is delivering gas, NCPA to operate the unit. You've got the government of California that's got to incentivize this, different trade groups, different startups to try to make this happen. And then a really cool thing that I saw that was in last month's Car and Driver magazine is a project in southern Chile called Hari Oni. And this is with Porsche. We're in collaboration with Porsche and the German government. And southern Chile has a lot of power. But how do you export power? So what they've come up with is they want to take that power, turn that into hydrogen, take that hydrogen, turn that into a synthetic gasoline. And from there, they transport that synthetic gasoline back to Europe for the Porsche drivers. So Porsche is really moving towards electric, but they really want to keep Porsches up, Porsche owners being able to drive their vehicles. So this way they've got a zero carbon footprint gasoline. And this is how you transport energy around the world, utilizing it as gasoline, maybe ammonia, different other sources. But that's where we're going to see a lot of the world is, we've got high energy pockets where there's lots of renewable power, whether it be in the middle of the desert, windy places. People don't tend to live there though, and we need to get it from where they are and to where they live. Some of the other problems we've got when you look at the transmission grid, the challenge that the grid's got is as I said earlier, that you've got people in one area, wind in another area, and solar in another area. So you've got to get that power economically across the country to where the population sources are. And that's utilizing high voltage DC. But it's also, as we start bringing a lot of renewables, power coming in, power coming off, whether the sun's shining, whether the wind stops blowing, you're getting all this instability. So, and as we retire a lot of these coal plants and some nuclear, you're already starting to see the grid starting to fluctuate. So our asynchronous generator in there creates that rotating mass that and the flywheels and the frequency converters help stabilize the grid. And that's extremely important if we really want to utilize the renewable energy that's created. And then lastly, and as an example, you look at a lot of the California oil refineries that are out there, and they're moving out to other fuels like biofuels and such. And we're working directly with them to create green, sustainable fuels with them. So I'm just wrapping up here, but let me hit a little bit on this. And at the end of this slide, I'm going to give you your homework as well. So no class should go without a little bit of homework. So as you look at this, we call this our Carb Roadmap. And on here are all the things that we as Siemens Energy see that can help take existing power generation sources and take them towards a more green and less carbon footprint. So there's a lot of things, as you see here on the left side, that are already up and running. Brownfield engine exchange is taking out gas turbines, old ones, putting new ones which are more efficient, upgrading the turbines that we have. This is stuff we do, and we do that quite well today. But then you're starting to move in. You've got co-firing of gas turbines, which we can get up to 20%. You see in the shift from coal to biomass. battery integration, power to heat, grid stability packages. So these are things that are you're starting to see come, and then you start seeing more things that are a little bit more in the future. Carbon capture, you see that, but trying to make that a scalable, getting your gas turbines running on 100%, making an economical electrolyzer, wind power, all these things working together to try to create the decarb journey. So what we tell our customers is your decarb roadmap probably goes through one of these dots or a number of these dots. So if you're trying to make your roadmap on what your future looks like, start drawing your lines through these and figure it out. You can't get all of them, but start and develop it. And there's going to be more dots that we continue to add to this as the technology grows and becomes more visible to us. But if you see here, that's our webpage, Siemens-Energy. If you go on there and search purple radar, you'll see that on there. And the neat effect that we've got online is when you bring your mouse over and you want to click, you say you want battery integration, you click battery integration, it'll give you what battery integration means and gives you what the future looks like. So some of your homework is go to our website, search that purple radar, and familiarize yourself with these different products, because this isn't just Siemens, this is really industry wide. And we all need to be up to speed on these and be generating our decarb roadmaps to make energy green for the future. So last slide. Sorry, sensitive. So we as Siemens Energy, we say we energize society. But as I said before, it's not about us. It's about the partnership. It's about all of us working together to get the technologies up and running. And none of this is going to happen overnight. You'll hear the press, you'll hear a lot of people at COP talking about, oh, we need to do this and we need to get here by the very near future. I would love to get us there, but it's a journey. It's going to continue, and it's going to continue through the next number of generations to get us to where we need to be. And I think we as a company, and we as academia, and we as different trade groups, all of us need to work together to figure out how to make this happen and take that 2050 number and try to accelerate that as much as possible. But the only way we're going to do that is to be doing that economically. And that's the important thing, because if we want it to be sustainable, it's got to be economically. So the challenge I'll put out to each of you is figure out different opportunities in the decarb, where you're all smart people. Get involved, get understanding, and figure out how we progress this technology, so we can pull that 2050 date in as close as we can, and complete our decarb roadmap. So with that, let me stop, and I'll be open for any questions.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic and super interesting. I'm going to open up the floor to my class and my own questions. But before I do that, does anyone in the audience have a question? Please go ahead and enter it in the Q&A/chat box, and I'm happy to go through and we can answer or address it. While you guys think about those, I'll ask one or two myself, and then we'll go from there. I just want to quickly change one setting that I can see. Great. You guys can see us okay, right? Yes, perfect. Okay. So first question comes in. Where does Siemens stand as far as nuclear energy is concerned? This is one of my questions too. As I look at your radar and look at much of what the future, the forward-looking goals and technologies are, though you mentioned nuclear at the beginning, I didn't see much commented on during your talk. How does it fit in?
Yeah, so I'll give you my perspective first, and then we'll open that up for Jerry. So, the nuclear has got to be part of the solution. And there's the challenge that we as Siemens Energy have is, we're a German-based company, so after Fukushima, the Germans basically decided we're not going to be in nuclear power. And so you see Germany starting to back away, and they're shutting down all their nuclear power. I'm the president of Siemens Energy North America, and I still do probably on the service side, probably 15 to 20%, depending the year, of my business is nuclear. And I think that's part of our Carb Roadmap solution. So we need to propagate nuclear, and we don't put that so much. That's great that you picked that up, because I'm pretty passionate about this, but I got to be a little sensitive with our shareholders as well as with our base company and not talk too much about it. But here in the US, we are committed to continuing to service the existing plants. A lot of the plants have multi-year licenses that are going to continue through the rest of my career, and probably most of the people's career on this call. So we see the existing plants that are up and running. Last week, I was actually at Vogel in Georgia to tour that facility. So we still do see some coming online. That one's hit, like I think they said, their new target price is $25 billion. So new large scale nuclear is probably a thing of the past, at least in North America. But where we see the future is SMRs, small modular reactors. That is definitely going to be that next generation. And we see that as a side that we're working on. And we've committed with some of our partners. We will be on the secondary side, so the non-hot side. So some of our partners are developing that reactor, but that reactor then creates steam, and we produce the steam turbines that'll utilize that to create the electricity. So Jerry, I don't know if you've got any other comments on that.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I could add beyond what Rich is describing as our role in the business as a provider of steam cycle equipment and service of that equipment, we are working quite diligently on advanced energy conversion techniques that exploit ways to recover heat from many different processes, including the heat from nuclear, right? It's not just water steam cycles anymore. There are other organic Rankine cycles, supercritical carbon dioxide cycles, heat recovery cycles that could be better utilized in nuclear. And we're continuing to explore those energy conversion processes that could mate quite well with these advanced small modular reactors that Rich is describing. And we see that as a strong future. Probably not seeing Siemens on the nuclear reactor side of things in terms of the actual nuclear reactions, but definitely the energy conversion piece, converting the thermal energy or whatever energy form comes out of those processes into the more useful form of electricity. That's where we'll be involved, and we feel it's going to take strong partnerships there to make that happen.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to quickly turn to the class and see if they have a question. Any questions? Come on, somebody can relay it. Yeah, way in the back. What's the question?
So you talk about hydrogen being used currently in gas facilities, like 50% of the current large-scale gas turbines can burn hydrogen. Are those like up to the efficiency of gas plants, or does hydrogen can it burn in the combined cycle plants as well?
Did you guys hear this? I can relay it.
Yeah, please relay that.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry, this was a student pretty far away. The question is, when you mentioned that you can combust hydrogen up to 50% in current systems, and you're moving towards a much higher fraction of up to 100% hydrogen combustion in some of your turbines, is the efficiency the same? And I actually had a secondary question around all this too, so I'm going to add it in there. I also understand that when hydrogen is combusted in these turbines, there is still the generation of NOx. Do you also think about scrubbing it before emissions? Are there other concerns around this in general? Can we just swap? I guess high level question: can we just swap in hydrogen for combustion in these, or cut it in with natural gas, or is it a bit more complicated, and why and how?
Yeah. So let me give you the dumbed down version first, and then I'll let Jerry explain the the other side. But so when you're up to 100% hydrogen, your zero emissions. But the challenge is when you start blending it in. So we say it's 30% by volume is where most of our larger turbines are. That reduces, I think the number is 30% hydrogen reduces it by about your carbon emissions by about 11%. So the challenge is you need to make sure that you're bringing that hydrogen percentage up as quickly as possible and as high as possible to start really bringing that down. So in the interim, some of the solutions could be scrubbing the exhaust with a carbon capture as well to pull the last little bit of carbon out. But ultimately, you want to get to the point where you're burning 100% hydrogen to bring that down. Jerry, you want to?
Yeah, I think that the person who asked the question also referred to NOx, and they're exactly right. Hydrogen isn't a solution to NOx emissions; it's a solution to carbon emissions, right? And so the stuff that comes along for the ride with nitrogen in the air and the NOx formation at high firing temperatures and the like still need to be addressed. We have technologies in our combined cycle, selective catalytic reduction systems in the HRSG that support those things, and those will still function. But we'll have to address those things as we go. And the other part of the question was the efficiency of our combined cycle power plants on hydrogen. Of course, the goal is to try and keep those efficiencies as high as we possibly can. In reality, what we're trying to do is make sure that the techno-economics or the life cycle economics of the customer are balanced, not so much just go after efficiency and not care about parts life and all of those other dimensions that affect economics. But there are some uniquenesses with hydrogen combustion, a little bit more water vapor in the exhaust. Water vapor and the products of combustion affects heat transfer coefficients on the turbine section. So the absorbed heat in the turbine section gets changed. So we have to balance how we hold our operating temperatures and efficiency to make sure that the parts can handle what we're trying to accomplish. But the goal is to keep the customers whole relative to their life cycle economics, probably a little bit more so than the absolute efficiency.
Great, super interesting. Another question from the online audience is, does Siemens Energy have a venture arm for startups? If so, what's the investment thesis? And I'll lump on one that I had, which is perhaps this has something to do with the collaboration you guys are currently starting with Breakthrough Energy Ventures.
Yeah, so this is an area that I'm really excited about because as the Breakthrough Energy Ventures, that's a very visible side. But we sort of started with our Siemens, and we call that Next 47, and that's our venture capital company. So that's our Siemens parent that has that. But then we're also working with a number of other venture capital companies, and we've just added Breakthrough Energy in there. And what we've realized is it's not about the money. There's lots of money out there. And the venture capitalists bring a lot of money, and the initial Breakthrough Energy guys came to us and said, "Hey, Siemens Energy, all of us are kicking in 10 million. We want you to kick in 10 million." And we went, "Yeah, we're kind of this new company here that we're watching every dollar." And as we talked to them, we realized, you guys got the money. You'll never compete against Bill Gates and Bezos and Warren Buffett with money, but what they don't have is that technology capability and the understanding. So what the startups really need, money's taken care of. What they need is how to take their product and their technology and scale it. And then once they got a good product, well, where does it go? You got to have knowledge of that customer base. So we've got that customer base knowledge. We know how to scale technology. And that's where we said we can sit in the middle here, and we can take these startup companies, either take part ownership of them, even just partner with them and figure out how we get ourselves into our differentiator. But on the other side, I want to turn to our customers and say, here, you keep saying you got this problem. we're this thought leader company that we want to be, and we want to help solve your problems. And we do that for the good of society, but it also makes a sustainable business for us going forward. So it's sort of that win-win-win. The startups win, the customers win, and we continue to grow our technology and grow our business accordingly.
Great. And just a quick follow on from the audience from someone, David Cohen. The question is really, does this kind of collaboration that you're talking about, this mentoring of startups and interaction, is this common in the industry, or is it setting you guys apart in terms of the way you're willing and able to reach out to create more value vis-a-vis some of these newer, smaller companies?
I think it really sets us apart. And I think some of that comes because of the arrogance of the big guys. We kind of have that too. We got guys like Jerry that have PhDs. What do we need those startup guys for? Right. And I think what we're realizing is, we've got a lot of great inventions and a lot of great ingenuity, but we kind of get stuck in the mud being a big company, and we need to find those small guys, the guys that are coming out of the universities that are just, I got this great idea, but I can't get it moving. So I think it does set us in a unique position. As a great example, Gecko Robotics that came out of your labs there. We partnered with them. They've taken they had the capital venture money. They've got it to a certain level. They're doing a lot of good stuff here in the US. They're a great, exciting company, but they didn't know how to get to Europe. And so we're actually partnered with them now. A week or two ago, they just opened up their office in the Netherlands. They're one of our partners there, where they're training some of our field engineers to start doing their products, to utilize their robotic inspection processes on some of the power plants, as well as some of the other boilers and different processes as well. So that, I think that's an area that's unique for us. And I think it's unique for the industry as well. So that's the stuff that gets me excited, because then I can see we've got a future, and we're enabling each other. And it's not that Siemens has to have control over the whole thing. We're trying to be much more humble now and saying, we can bring stuff, but everybody else can bring stuff too. And I think that's unique in the industry.
I'll second that. That's fair. I think it's unique as well, and I think that mindset is going to serve everybody, especially as we try to go after these. I don't know why I got that. Especially since we have all these other challenges that we all probably can work better together with than individually. Quick question on I want to talk hydrogen cost. You mentioned that you were $5 to $8 per kilogram roughly right now out of your electrolyzer. What part of that, and I'm asking this in particular because I know we have folks in this room and at CMU who are looking to find out, what's the biggest challenge? What innovations are needed most? Is it the membrane system? Is it the stack? Is it the efficiency? Is it the the catalyst that you were using? If we were to try to figure out which things we should be putting some of our basic research towards to help reduce the cost and get to this 111 target, $1 per kilogram in a decade. How can we help? What's needed technically?
Good. Jerry, do you want to take that one?
I mean, I think fundamentally it's the two drivers to the production cost of green hydrogen is really the source of the energy that's going into the process, the cost of the water that's going into the process, and the capital cost of the equipment for the process itself. And I would say probably the biggest challenge is really kind of getting the PEM electrolysis device or the product get its cost position improved, right? And whether that's through improved membranes or some other approach, that needs to be worked, and that's the primary thing. I mean, of course the source electricity for green electrolysis is a big driver, but the focal point is really the capex of the equipment from my point of view. It's not really so much, I guess the operating cost also is a factor because of membrane life and those types of things, but it's mainly a cost of equipment from my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe I could just add a little bit onto that. So it's about simplification of the process as well. So today you're starting to see some higher pressure units as well. So if you look at our current offering, basically the hydrogen comes out at atmospheric. Well, then you've got to compress it, which adds another cost, not only capital cost, but also a process cost. So if you can pressurize it going in, the challenge is now you got a pressure vessel as your electrolyzer, which then you've got to look at what the longevity is. And what we've got to make sure is that we're not producing a product that's only that only can run in a lab. We've got to get a product out there that can run for multiple years, 5-10 years, with limited amount of service to make it feasible.
All right. Well, so I'm not so sure how much time you guys set aside. These typically end in an hour, but I've got a couple more questions. So first, I'll ask you: can you go another 10 minutes, just in the event that we want to ask a couple more questions?
Yeah, if you guys aren't kicking us out yet, I'm good.
No, well, my class goes to 10 after, and having you guys is just so valuable. But I just want to thank. We're going to offer a round of applause right now and officially end the session so that those who are here for just an hour can log off. So let's give a yay. And so this will officially conclude the actual Scott Institute portion of this, but I'd like to, if you wouldn't mind, 10 more minutes with the class, and anyone else who wants to stay on, please do. So I'm going to turn to an anonymous attendee online, and this was another question that I was going to ask, and it was specific to solid oxide fuel cells. We have here in Pittsburgh a really beautiful botanical conservatory called the Phipps, and inside the Phipps is a late model 5 kilowatt Siemens solid oxide fuel cell that was actually made here in the Pittsburgh area back before the solid oxide fuel cell subdivision of Siemens was somehow either moved or decommissioned or whatnot. I'm curious, are you guys looking into that again? Is this a viable thing to look into? How do you guys view what's going on at Bloom Energy and other SOFC companies? You obviously invested in it at one point long ago. Is it something to look at again?
Yeah, I'll let Jerry talk through some of the detail, but yeah, it's unfortunately that was probably a 10+ year ago venture. Yep. That the technology, we just couldn't, the technology was close, but we just couldn't get it into a business. And at that point, we kind of looked at it and said, so what do we do for the future? Do we just go on hold and shut it down for the time being until it really gets the technology there, or do you just continue to dump multiple millions of dollars year after year? So we made the decision at the time to close that business, and I think it broke a lot of our hearts to shut down that business. But Jerry, you probably maybe got some more history around that than I do as well.
Well, I mean, not as much of the history, but maybe a little bit more of the future. I mean, there are so many technologies with potential, and fuel cells is clearly one of them. And as Rich pointed out, this whole idea of partnership and togetherness to try and develop systems and energy system design for the global marketplace is really where we're headed, right? And so there's a lot of technologies that are needed around something like a fuel cell, whether that be fuel conditioning, whether that be power conditioning. And so technologies like the fuel cell, we consider those as integrated solutions, things that we can bring in and integrate those systems around and offer in partnership with others. And that's the type of approach that you'll see Siemens Energy taking on fuel cells and other types of technology like that. It may very well be that we're not the original equipment manufacturer of a fuel cell, as an example, but certainly, offering an integrated solution for our customers that might include something like a fuel cell is a direction that we'll head for many, many different things. Whether you're talking battery integration, energy storage, fuel production, like Rich pointed out, that'll be the Siemens Energy approach.
Great, thanks. Real quick, I'm going to turn. Any more questions from the class? Yes. Come on up, so we can hear you.
Hello.
Go for it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. My question was considering, so Siemens has a history in in Hitler's Germany, and considering the recent development of the blade factory that will be set up in Virginia, and considering like environmental impacts of port activities in this area in Virginia, can you speak to the corporate social responsibility that you'll be taking in terms of impacts on, the communities in Virginia, or in terms of your goal for this 1-1-1, energy transition? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, maybe there's a broader question in general about Siemens sort of corporate responsibility and image portrayal. How you guys look at pushing out sort of what really matters to you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I really didn't hit on it where we are in regard to sustainability. But I think maybe just to your first point, there is a past, and I think as you understand your past and you understand what to learn from your past is extremely important. And I think that is a company, that's something that we as Siemens Energy are doing and have done over many years, and Siemens as well. And I've lived in Germany for about 2.5 years, and I will say even the German people, they've learned from their past, and that to make sure that we're not going to ever get back to where we are. And I think that's where you see a lot of the socialized part of Germany as well, and Europe as a whole. It is somewhat structured around that. And we definitely see our German colleagues much more ahead of us than the US when it comes to green energy, when it comes to sustainable products, when it comes to social wellness. That's what I like about working for the company that I am. I'm a Canadian, so I'm kind of in the middle. You've got sort of the US a little bit over here, you got Germany and Europe over here. Canada kind of sits in the middle between each of those. So we as Siemens have taken on that by 2023. So we've taken the UN goals and really jumped on a few of the ones, and we'll meet them, and then we'll start taking on other goals as well. But some of the sustain ESG goals that they put out, 2023, I'll just throw some dates and numbers at you. We will be on 100% renewable fuels. So our own use will be 100% fuels. By 2030, we'll be climate neutral as a company. I'm missing the date, but just it was in front of 2030. We'll have 25% women in our senior management roles. So there's a number of different social items that we're taking, and the inclusion and diversity groups that we've kicked off are really driving a lot of discussion within the Siemens Energy organization. Last week, I was with our I&D group at the Women's Forum in Energy here in Orlando, and there's probably 300 or 400 people in that room. We probably had about 20 people in that room from Siemens Energy, and it wasn't just all females. Granted, the bulk of them were females, but it was a number of men and women looking at where we are on the energy front and saying, in this man-dominated industry, or the male-dominated industry, we've got to figure out how to get women in engineering and get it moving in that right direction. To that point, I've got a daughter at University of Florida in her 4th year engineering, the mechanical engineering, and she'll be doing her master's. She's already started some master's course. So it starts at home and it starts at the business as well.
That's fantastic. Carnegie Mellon is trending in really similar ways too, and I couldn't agree with you more. Another question for the class? Go on. We have one or two more, and that's going to be the end of it. But this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. My question relates to, I guess, like the public sector and the private sector, and the interplay between them, and what your perspectives are in terms of the role of policy and like in this whole space, versus, I guess, pushes from big corporations like you and also the customers and what they really want when they do come to you.
No,
And
that's
I'll-
great. Oh,
Go ahead, please answer.
no, that's a great question because you know, and I spent a lot of time talking to politicians, and I met a number of senators and congressmen, and my message is very consistent: is don't mess up the market, because what I need you to do as part of your public policy is to come out and kickstart an industry. And you can kickstart it in various ways. You can contribute to research and development, you know, through the Department of Energy. We've got a few different grants, you know, one at Clemson, one at Intermountain, where we're developing the hydrogen technology, as well as a number on our turbine side as well. We need the government to help us drive the innovation, you know, tax incentives around R&D side. That's where we need the government. And then we saw that on the wind, so they call it PTC, which are the tax credit, production tax credits. We see that on wind, we see that on solar. That helps get it kick-started, the industry kick-started. We had, you know, a number of years ago, we had to get wind turbines on the ground to get them up and running. And that's the way we feel on hydrogen, is we need some of that PTC, the production tax credits, to get hydrogen in the ground so that we learn from doing and we start being able to scale that way. But what I caution every politician is, don't create a false economy. A false economy will never be sustainable. You know, and then we as an industry get, oh, we can only do this with government incentives. That is the wrong way. We need the government incentives and the tax credits to kickstart it. But then slowly, if we want this to become a real and sustainable business, that's when they slowly have to start pulling those benefits back and allowing the business to run on its own. Then we start seeing the innovation really start kicking in to make it for the long term.
So real quick on that process, do you have like a group that you're part of that is lobbying or working with the various politicians, or are you yourself making these connections? I'm just curious about the mechanisms. I mean, there's some really interesting, important things happening in the infrastructure bill. The H2 production PTC is a really big one, I think. And I'm just curious, are you guys, it's a hot topic, I'm sure. Yeah. Are you individually or as a group working with like a consortium?
Yeah, yes and yes. So
yes,
I've actually got two lobbyists that you know, they're registered lobbyists, but they're our Siemens Energy employees that sit up in Washington, and that's what they do every day, is, you know, go around the halls and figure out what the you know, spend a lot of time with the staffers, because that's where the real things get done. We then hire some other lobbyist firms that have certain connections. And what we know is we got to play both sides. You got to play the Republican side as well as the Democrat side to make things happen. So we're trying to bring our knowledge to them and say, hey, this is the way we see the market. This is where we think we need you to be in, and this is the areas we don't want you to be in. But then we pull back. Our board member is on the Atlantic Council here. Tim Holt, who sits here in Orlando, sits on the Atlantic Council. We're members of the Green Energy or Hydrogen Coalition out of LA. So various other industry groups, and then even just partnerships, you know. So I'm very close to the guys at Duke, Southern Company, FPL, you know, just seeing what they're doing, seeing what we're doing, and making sure that we're working complementary to make things happen. So you know, sort of yes and yes. It's about the lobbying side to make sure that you know, first of all, that the government helps it, but second of all, that they don't do something stupid as well. And you know, the worst thing they can do is start passing rules that are not that we're not able to, take all the coal plants out tomorrow, take all the nuclear plants out the day after that. It's about cautioning them what the journey is and making sure that they follow the right path.
Perfect. Last, we basically are over time. So this is like, I want a 30-second answer on this one, just because I do want to make sure that I get this last audience member's question. It is future of automation software for electric power system. Is it going to continue to be a large centralized control rooms, or are you moving more towards decentralized control? As you get more and more distributed devices and technologies, is it still going to be more of a single control room model, or are we really also opening up the architecture? I want a super concise answer, just a really quick one. How do you view this?
So very quickly, depends. All good answers have a depends. We do see a lot of decentralized power going to industry, but we are also seeing a lot of centralized control rooms. I was at FPL. They're going to run all their power plants in their district, in their area, from one control room that sits in Juneau, Florida. Today, they manage all their wind resources that sit out on the west side from Juneau, Florida. So depending who you are, if you're a big utility, centralized, if you're small, distributed, you're probably going to run them locally.
Perfect. There you have it. So Siemens is agnostic. You'll help both. It really depends on the region. All right. So that's all we have time for. And I want one last round of applause for class. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is really fun. I really enjoyed this format. I hope those who are still tuned in enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining us for this distinguished lecture. And with that, we will call it a day.